It was a not-so-subtle swipe at the U.S. Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan standing with his Russian counterpart Vladimir Putin as they viewed the Su-57 fighter jet, an aircraft many have called a direct competitor to the U.S.'s F-35. The two leaders met at a Russian air show on the outskirts of Moscow as Ankara's own defense ties with Washington were up in the air. The delivery of the second batch of the S-400 missile system to Turkey also came as they sat down to discuss possible defense cooperation. Turkey's purchase of the S-400 has created a deep rift with the U.S. and has all but ended Ankara's involvement in the F-35 program. But the meeting between President Erdogan and Putin wasn't entirely cordial. The Turkish president blamed the Russian-backed Assad regime of threatening peace in Syria with its continued bombardment of the last rebel enclave of Idlib. Erdogan also warned of a pending humanitarian crisis and that Turkey could take steps along its border to prevent a deepening crisis. And joining me now is Mehmet Ogutcu, who is a former Turkish diplomat, and Barçın Yinanç, who is a journalist at Hürriyet Daily News. Thank you for joining me on Straight Talk. It's good to have you on set. So, Mehmet, I want to start with you. How significant was President Recep Tayyip Erdogan's meeting with Russian President Vladimir Putin at an air show amid rising tensions in Idlib?
Well, I mean, as you know, the Turkish-Russian relations have been developing very, very fast and including so many new areas of collaboration. But this visit was an unexpected one, as far as I can understand, because of the crisis in Idlib getting deepened and becoming quite difficult to manage. President Erdogan and President Putin had a telephone call to resolve the issues, outstanding issues. It didn't work, I guess. Then President Erdogan wanted to fly and talk face-to-face with President Putin. But this visit also coincided with two things. One is the MAX aviation fair, in which the Russian latest technologies, fifth generation Su-57, Su-35, as well as military helicopters and all other things were on display. And from the Russian point of view, this was a good message. The second, I think, significance was that the second batch of S-400s came to Turkey.
Yes.
And this was also a message to Washington from Ankara perspective that if we are suspended, as it happened, from F-35 program, so there are other alternatives.
So, Barçın, do you believe that the two leaders managed to hammer out their differences over Idlib?
Well, looking to the statements, we do not get the feeling that the fundamental difference are overcome because the fundamental difference stems from their outlook to the existing forces in Idlib. As far as Russia is concerned, these are terrorist groups. Yes. And as far as Turkey is concerned, these are opposition groups. And Russia is claiming Turkey of not delivering on its word of separating, let's say, legitimate opposition forces from what Russia sees as terrorists.
Isn't it a bit hard to separate those real terrorists from opposition forces?
Obviously, but this has always been the case in all types of conflict zones. Your terrorist is not my terrorist, etc. But the key point here, I think, is that Putin and Erdogan make sure to give the message to the outside world that even if they disagree or even if they are not able to solve their fundamental differences, they will continue on working. And on that, especially, I would say, Putin makes a point of not antagonizing openly Turkish president because he wants to use this relationship in order to give a message to the outside world and especially to Western alliance that he is succeeding in keeping Turkey away from the Western alliance. So on the appearance, they always, they try to hide that they have real differences and they have difficulty in solving these differences, whereas it's clear that they fail on solving them.
And as for the formation of a safe zone along with Turkey's Syrian border, let's take a minute and listen to what Russian President Vladimir Putin said, and we'll continue to talk.
The creation of a security zone on the southern border of Turkey will become a good condition to ensure the territorial integrity of Syria. In this respect, we support any activity aimed at de-escalation in this area.
So, Mehmet, we just listened to the Russian president. What do you make of his statement? Is this a swift in Russian policy, or is it just what Russia wants?
I think we need further elaboration from President Putin what he meant by saying that he's supporting efforts to de-escalate the conflict in
As well
Turkey's
as to,
southern borders. He says he understands Turkish sensitivities as well, security
But he also talks
concerns.
about serious territorial integrity.
Yes. I think also Turkey keeps saying it because no matter what happens in the east of Euphrates and west, we always stick to the basic principle of territorial integrity of Syria. And this also brings us the question of how Syria is looking into this situation. The US-Turkish understanding in creating a peace corridor along the Turkish border, thus separating Turkey from YPG forces, equipped, fully trained by the United States. So I think it's not very wise to jump into conclusions right now in terms of what Russia and what Damascus will be saying about that. Also, it remains to be seen whether this arrangement between Washington and Ankara will be working. We have to wait and see how it works because the Washington's intention is quite clear. But the fact that Putin also thought this was an effort which will help de-escalation of the conflict is a positive sign. And we need to see also what Damascus will be saying about that. So any effort to de-escalate the situation in Idlib and east of Euphrates, I think in the interest of everybody. And we will have a critical meeting in Turkey
In the second half of September, yes.
Where Rouhani, Putin and Erdogan will come together and review the progress in the Astana process and also see what the additional steps could be. This is something Putin mentioned during the Moscow meeting with Erdogan.
So, Barcin, do you believe that the Astana process is still valid? And what do you make of Iran's position in the face of these latest developments?
Well, it's difficult to say that the process is alive, but the situation is so complicated that I don't think we should be sticking to the names or to the processes. I think each player in the field are sort of taking new positions according to new developments. What is clear is that Turkey has two probably new neighbors in itself. I mean, the main neighbor being Russia and the other neighbor being Iran. So that's why Turkey is trying to manage these two countries and also trying perhaps at times using United States. Although I would say there are a lot of problems with United States in terms of its existence there, in terms of its support to groups which Turkey sees as a terrorist, still I would rather say that its presence can be at times, can play as a leverage for Turkey against Iran and Russia, because at the end of the day, I'm not sure Turkey is happy to have Russia and Iran as additional neighbors in its southern frontier.
So, Mehmet, if promises given to Turkey are not met by the United States, do you believe there is a possibility that Turkey can unilaterally launch a military operation in the eastern Euphrates?
This is what Turkey says, because President Erdogan made it quite clear that if these promises and assurances will not be kept, we keep our option, Plan B.
Is it doable?
I think if we consider this as a vital national security interest, it should be done, because there's no doubt that Turkey can do it, because we have the world's eighth largest military and they can easily carry out this operation. But this will create certain risks with the United States especially, because U.S. is quite adamant that they will protect YPG. And YPG is not just a small bandit groups. It's now about 60,000, 80,000 strong army, trained by Israelis and Americans in many ways. So it's going to be a tough conflict. Therefore, both sides will try to avoid that. But everybody says we understand Turkey's sensitivities and concerns. But what it means in reality is quite different. But Turkey has committed itself to an operation east of Euphrates so many times. So also credibility and deterrence might be eroded. So Turkey has to take some action, whatever this action might be.
So Barçın and Mehmet, thank you for joining me on Straight Talk. Appreciate it a lot.